Picture two wooden ships, locked in ice, somewhere near the top of the world, so far north that the map basically gives up. No engine can move them, no sail can help them. The sea itself has frozen solid around the hulls, and it is not letting go. On board, 129 men. The best the British Empire could put to sea. And every single one of them is going to die out here. Here's the part that gets me. For almost 170 years, nobody could say exactly how. 129 men, two of the most advanced ships on Earth, gone. No survivor, no clear answer. Swallowed by a place so empty it barely registers as a place at all. And the strangest part, someone did know. The people who actually lived in that ice carried the story for generations. The most powerful empire on the planet just refused to listen. This is the Franklin expedition, probably the most documented vanishing in history, and we still can't tell you exactly how it ended. Let's go back to the beginning, because the beginning is all confidence. It's 1845, and Britain is the most powerful empire on Earth. There's one prize left on the map that keeps slipping through its fingers. The Northwest Passage, a sea route over the top of North America, a shortcut between two oceans that sailors had been dying to find for 300 years. The man they picked to finally crack it is Sir John Franklin. He's 59. He has already survived two earlier Arctic expeditions. On one of them, his men ate their own boot leather to stay alive. He's not the obvious choice for a young man's mission, but he's respected, he's willing, and the Navy wants a sure thing. And they give him the best ships in the world, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. Bomb ships, built so heavy they could survive firing siege mortars, which also made them perfect for ramming ice. They bolt steam engines inside, propellers that crank up out of harm's way, heating pipes through the decks. 3 full years of food. This isn't a survival mission in their minds. It's a floating piece of the empire. They pack a library of more than 1,000 books, china place settings, crystal, sheet music for the evenings. They are that sure they'll be fine. July 1845. A couple of whaling ships cross paths with them up in Baffin Bay, waiting for the ice to open. The crews wave. The whalers sail on. That's it. That's the last time anyone outside the expedition ever sees them alive. 129 men sail past the edge of the map and into silence. The first sign of trouble doesn't surface for years. When searchers finally reach a little place called Beechey Island, they find 3 graves. 3 of Franklin's men, dead in that very first winter. Headboards carved, neat, respectful. The crew still had the time and the strength to bury their dead properly. That tells you the disaster wasn't sudden. It was slow, because here's what we think happened next. The ships push south and get caught, locked into the pack ice off a place called King William Island. And then they just stop. One winter, then another. The ice that's supposed to break up in summer doesn't break up. Not that year, not the next. Imagine the psychology of that. You ration the food. You wait for the thaw that's coming any week now. And it doesn't come. And the men around you start to get sick in ways the ship's doctor can't name. On the 11th of June, 1847, Sir John Franklin dies. We don't know how. And command falls to his officers, Crozier and Fitzjames, with 2 ships full of starving men and no way out. What happens next? We only know because of one piece of paper. A single note stuffed into a stone cairn on King William Island. It's the only written record the expedition ever left behind. And it's chilling because it's written in two parts. The first part, 1847, scrawled in the margins. Everything's fine, all well. The second part, written around the same note almost a year later, April 1848. 24 men dead, the ships abandoned, Franklin gone, and the survivors, 105 of them, are going to try to walk out. Think about that decision. You are stranded on the ice, hundreds of miles from any help, in one of the harshest places on Earth. And you decide your best chance is to leave the ships, your only shelter, your only warmth, and walk. Across an island, across frozen sea, toward river on a mainland you have never seen. And they don't travel light. For reasons nobody can fully explain, they drag ship's boats, mounted on heavy sledges, loaded with things that make no sense out there. Silver plate, books, including a copy of The Vicar of Wakefield, silk handkerchiefs, carpet slippers, men dying of starvation, hauling the silver. It's one of the eeriest details in the whole story, and we still argue about what it means. They're heading for the Back River on the Canadian mainland. About 400 kilometers of the worst walking conditions imaginable. Sick, frozen, half-starved. And one by one, they start to fall. Now, for the longest time, this is where the official story went quiet. The British searchers came home and said, "We found almost nothing. We'll never really know." But that's not true, because there were witnesses. The Inuit who lived and traveled across that land saw it happen. They told the searchers about white men walking south, gaunt and stumbling, dropping where they stood. They described a boat with bodies still in it, and they described something the British did not want to hear, that toward the end, to survive even a little longer, some of those men had eaten their dead. And back home, they called the Inuit liars. Charles Dickens, yes, that Dickens, wrote essays basically saying it couldn't be true, that no British gentleman would ever do such a thing, that the savages must have done it. It was easier to attack the witnesses than to believe the heroes had come to that. Here's the thing about the truth, though. It waits. More than a century later, archaeologists go back to King William Island and start examining the bones the expedition left behind. Hundreds of them. And under the microscope, on nearly a quarter of those bones, they find cut marks, clean ones, made by blades. Exactly the pattern the Inuit had described, and exactly what starving people do when there is nothing else left. The Inuit hadn't been lying. They had been the only ones telling the truth the whole time. For 170 years, finding those two ships became its own obsession. Dozens of expeditions, fortunes spent, and the wrecks stayed hidden, because the searchers kept looking where they thought the ships should be, instead of where the people who lived there said they were. Then, 2014, a Canadian-led team, working with Inuit knowledge this time, following the oral maps that had been passed down for generations, finds it. HMS Erebus, sitting on the seafloor, almost perfectly preserved, in shallow water, right about where the Inuit had always said a big ship went down. 2 years later, 2016, HMS Terror, found in a bay that already, somehow, carried the name Terror Bay. Hatches closed, bottles still on the shelves, almost like the crew had tidied up and stepped out. And the wreck of the Terror raised a brand new question. It was found far from where that last note said the ships were abandoned, which means some of those men may have come back, reboarded a ship, and tried to sail her south after all hope should have been gone. We still don't know who or how far they got. The most haunting identification came in 2024. Using DNA from a jawbone found on King William Island, matched against living descendants, scientists put a name to one of the senior officers, Captain James Fitzjames, one of the two men who signed that final note, and the cut marks were on his bones too. The first time science could say, by name, that one of the expedition's own leaders had, in the end, been eaten. And it isn't stopping. Just this year, 2026, DNA gave names to 4 more of the men. One of them, Harry Pegler, was a mystery folded inside the mystery. His remains turned up 130 kilometers from the others, wearing a uniform that wasn't even his rank. A riddle that had stumped searchers since 1859. Sailors who had been anonymous bones for 160 years, suddenly people again, with families, with faces someone, somewhere, still remembered. So, we found the ships. We're learning the names. We finally believe the witnesses who were right all along. You'd think that would close the file. It doesn't. Because we still don't know the story. We don't know what those final weeks really looked like. We don't know who made the choice to turn back to the ships. We don't know who was the last man standing on that ice, alone, at the top of the world, watching the others go. The Arctic doesn't give up its secrets all at once. It gives them up one summer at a time. One bone, one wreck, one name. 170 years in, the ice is still talking. We're finally learning how to listen. 129 men sailed in, looking for a way through. The way through was real. It just cost more than anyone was willing to believe. This is the Static Files, where we dig up the real cases the history books left half-finished. If that's your kind of mystery, follow along. There's a new one every week. Real cases, no endings.